Welcome to Dad Schooled. We are a
Hey, good to
podcast
see you
for
again.
dads who want to lead with integrity, raise strong families, and do some laughs along the way. Whether you're a homeschool dad, a father navigating the challenges of modern parenting, or just looking for encouragement and wisdom from fellow dads, you're in the right place. I am Josh.
I'm Jimmy.
Let's get started.
Yeah,
Today's topics. We're going to talk about, hopefully, and this is all with a big caveat of if we get to it or not, because we like to talk about random things off the chain, if you will. What makes a good dad, and the top mistakes most dads make. That's the two topics that we will attempt to discuss. It did make my attention. No, it came to my attention that even though I keep on saying we're going to tell lots of jokes, I never have a dad joke. So we're going to start something new of a
you've been
daily or
disappointing me.
yeah, a weekly dad joke. So in today's theme, I thought this would be good. I tried to be hands-on dad, but apparently superglue isn't the answer.
Oh no,
Wah, 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 wah.
we're gonna start off this way every
Yep.
show now.
Yeah, every day, every time we're gonna start a bad dad joke.
Can only go downhill from here.
Yes. So, Jimmy, what makes a what makes a good dad?
I mean, first of all, realizing that you have responsibility and jumping in and being part of it. I mean, there's so many examples out there. You see all through your community of dads who are plugged in and dads who aren't. Uh, and it's not something that you can tell just right off the cuff at first glance. You can't. It's not like a sign that someone has hanging on their shirt, a scarlet letter or something that says if they are or aren't. And even all these dads out there, myself and yourself included, some days we have good and some days we have bad. And it's a kind of a continuum, if you will, that it's something that you can slide in and out of. And if you find that yourself more often in that bad dad arena, doesn't mean that that's where you stay, that you have to stay, that you can put in some work, you can take some opportunity to um, develop yourself, reach out to some mentors, and you can make some changes and be a better dad. It's never too
Okay.
late.
Yeah. I agree with everything you just said, which is why we do this show because, if I didn't agree, it'd be a different kind of show.
Right.
I
Yeah.
object. Uh so I was actually trying to do a little research on this topic and I made a startling discovery. If you are to look at historical references of good dads and bad dads, um, there are a lot of extremes out there. In fact, the good dads. Well, let's start with bad dads first because they're fun to talk about. If
Yeah.
we stay in the biblical context, now what I'm going to say isn't discounting that the reason these fathers are portrayed this way is to not only teach us what not to do, but there's also a meaning and a reason behind why this happened this way. It was all according to God's plan, and I'm not going to discount that at all. But we're just going to take a look at some of the obvious ones in biblical history, like Lot from Genesis. We all remember Lot when he had two angels come to his house and he hosted them, and the community didn't really appreciate that too much, and they tried to come and know his friends. If you get my context, Lot's response wasn't just "go away, neighbors." It was "go away, neighbors," and by the way, take my two virgin daughters. Know them instead, not my two friends.
Hmm.
Father of the Year award there.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunate, and things didn't work out too well for that whole city, if I remember right. But um, that shows really poor moral leadership. Not putting the right things first in your life. I know it's a very high level and not analytical view of that situation. Probably not the view that most people are going to when they're reading that story, but just a high level looking at it. Lot was kind of a bad dad in that instance, right?
Hmm.
So I guess
Pretty bad.
from that, yeah, pretty bad. From that instance, we can learn having poor moral judgment, leadership, showing your kids uh, that they're not is the most important thing in your life. That's kind of a characteristic of a bad dad, right?
No,
Good. Okay, we agree on that too. That's good. Uh, Next
around the same.
instance I found Jacob. Okay, we all know this one in Genesis as well. Favored Joseph, gave him shiny new clothes and colorful clothes that the other kids didn't get, creating jealousy within his family. I mean, this is obviously not the direction a lot of people go with this story sometimes when they're talking about Jacob in the Bible, but he definitely showed favoritism and division, right? Like he wasn't equal and fair in his own family. Okay. And then we kind of go off the rails from there. I mean, there's a lot of other figures in the Bible you could talk about, but I decided to look at some historical figures as well as another Herod, I guess, is in the Bible also. But I looked at Joseph Stalin. You know about
Okay.
I know it's kind of a jump, but just googling bad
Yeah.
fathers, and you get a fun list.
Uh,
So I got Joseph Stalin. Apparently, I don't know if you knew this or not, Jimmy. He had a son. I just forgot his name. It was very Russian sounding, uh, like
young Stalin.
Yakov or something like that.
Okay.
He was captured by the Germans in World War II, sent to a camp, and when he was negotiating for his release, he did not negotiate for his release. Basically, saying, "I think I do not trade lieutenants for colonels or colonels for lieutenants," or some kind of phrase that I can't remember. But then his son committed suicide slash died trying to escape, and that was that. So I know in war times you can't always predict what's going to happen, but as
Hmm.
far as doing everything you can to get your son back, I don't know. That was the example I saw for Stalin. Plus, Stalin's kind of a bad guy in my opinion anyway, so I wanted to bring him up because he's bad.
Yeah.
uh, you know about Ivan the Terrible?
Sounds sounds probably pretty terrible.
Terrible, yes. Uh, if I remember right, Ivan the Terrible had a son that it was the only heir to the throne at the time, or whatever they call it in Russia. The house, maybe throne's the right word. I don't
Yeah.
remember, but he was the only heir to that dynasty. Maybe not
Okay.
dynasty. That's it's never mind. But anyways, he apparently hit him so hard in a fit of rage, he died,
Oh gosh.
leaving the country without an heir at all. And it actually was credited as one of the turning points in that era of the downfall in Russia. So
Huh. I
that's
haven't heard that one.
pretty bad. Yeah, I learned that last night. I was like, really? That's a terrible dad hitting your son. He
Yeah.
dies. Probably shouldn't do
Throws your whole
that.
country off. Yeah.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, there's a point behind this also. Believe it or not. Then we have Herod the Great. You know what he did?
Probably something not so great.
Not so great. Yeah, he was, if I remember right, very, very um, suspicious, scared that he would lose his throne and power. That he started
Paranoid.
executing. Yeah, paranoid. He started executing his family.
Oh.
So yeah,
Oh.
Father of the Year award right
Yeah.
there.
Paranoia and power is not a very good combination to
And
throw together.
and out of those people, the only comments I really had was they were terrible, just bad, just the worst.
So everyone out there, as long as you're not having paranoid fits of rage or that sort of thing, then you at least got a leg up on these guys.
Yes, and I just wanted to bring all those guys up because that's like the extreme example of a bad dad, a bad father,
Yeah.
right? Now that's, I mean, I think that covers it because like other examples I found, this person killed his family, this person killed this person did this, and they're all like leaders and really bad situations happen. But the common theme is they're just bad. And I kind of wanted to have that extreme on the plate here before we go to the good, which is actually the other far extreme of the good side. And some of this is you're researching this stuff and you're really not sure if it's the internet talking or if it's history talking. You start looking further into it and you realize that okay, you can make some assumptions. These people I'm about to mention, actually, I didn't include anybody that wasn't biblical because there's so much controversy about bad things they've done that just mentioning them as good would be totally, I think, I don't know. We might become famous as a podcast for just for mentioning people being good.
Going
That's my point.
the wrong way.
And there, yes. So I'm gonna go with some obvious home runs here, like Abraham, right? And and stick with me, Jimmy. We're gonna tie this all together. Okay.
I'm following.
Abraham trusting God, leading by example. Okay, that's kind of his biblical theme that he's, and this is kind of focused on what how they taught their children. I guess you can go with this. Job. Now I know later on things changed for Job, but Job regularly prayed for his children, showing concern for their spiritual well-being. He was concerned that if they were to sin and not have someone pray for their sins, that they would have issues. So he was always looking out for their spiritual well-being. He wasn't ignoring that fact. Okay, he was taking it to heart, taking it very seriously. And then our good father Noah, right? Kind of credited with saving, being part of God's plan
Yeah.
to save humanity, give us a restart kind of thing. But he obeyed God, and he showed that even if it's a super unpopular opinion, you should still obey God. Right? Like literally everyone around him was telling him it was crazy and he shouldn't be doing what he's doing, but he obeyed God nonetheless. And he showed his kids that, which I think is very important. So these fathers, biblical fathers, show a great dad has to lead with faith, wisdom, protection, and love. Right? And the bad dad showed us that you lead with just killing people and being bad and showing bad morals. Right? Kind of good parallel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that leads us to if these good fathers had biblical based, foundations, uh, is that important, Jimmy? You think to have a
Oh
biblically
yeah.
based foundation in your parenting
I mean,
style?
there's not any better place for gleaning truth and wisdom in all of your decision makings than through Scripture. And I mean, we could pinpoint dozens of stories of parental interactions with their offspring through Scripture. Those
Yes.
who set up made godly examples, and you could see God worked through them and blessed many other people, their household included. And you can see many of other examples where things went off the rails through paranoia or power structure or just some of their struggle, someone making a bad choice that affected their household and other people. Yeah, biblical roots are a great place for sifting out who you want to be as a father and what direction you're going to take your household.
And the Bible shows us how we should. I guess. I guess I probably should have had exact examples before I said that sentence. But so they show us how we should treat our families and show us how we should treat, our kids, wives, all that stuff. I mean, it's in the scriptures. Now, not knowing exact scripture locations is okay as a Christian. You just have to know that you can go there to look it up and get in God's word to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I love um, even just the Shema. Have you ever read that? It's from Deuteronomy, but it's one of the old Hebrew, one of the more important um, Hebrew scriptures for Jewish religion. But it's where that phrase "teach them diligently" comes out of. is later in that scripture, but it's in Deuteronomy. And it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your might. And with these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall talk to them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by your way, and when you lie down, and when you rise, and when you bind them as a sign on your hand. It shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." And that's why, if you've ever visited a friend that might be Jewish, or been to someone's home that is Jewish, they have on their doorposts, they have um, the little box on the side of their door, and as they go in, they pat it and they say their little prayer to themselves, and it's from this scripture. But that's the sort of repetitive routine that could be something that we could all learn from. That even in the mundane moments of when you sit and when you rise and when you lie down, through all of that, like, you are um, reminding yourself and you're reminding your family uh, about the Lord our God. The Lord is one, and that's that just repetitive motion, but it's just deep, deeply sinking in that truth into the heart of their family. And so, yeah, Scripture can have a profound impact on the direction that you go with teaching and upraising your family.
Definitely. And um, in being in Scripture, um, we get the opportunity to not only grow as Christians ourselves, but demonstrating what we learn from Scripture to our kids. I believe if if anything, if you are a hypocrite and if you don't practice what you preach, if you say be kind to others, but then you're not kind to the waitress at the restaurant, if you tell your kids always tell the truth, but then you don't tell the truth and you're openly trying to deceive somebody in front of your kids, it's very important that as fathers we live our lives according to what we are teaching our kids. We can't just be um, halfway there. Can't just be a convenience father. Whenever the kids aren't around, do something else either, because they'll see it. It'll come back at you somehow. Just like telling a lie to your wife, they always know. So don't even try.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's important that demonstrating what you preach to your kids, demonstrating how to live your life, that's part of being a good dad, is being on. And when you make mistakes, call yourself out on it. And that's part of it as well. You can't just be um, get angry, stomp your feet, slam doors, walk away, and raise your voice when you're called on something. You got to eat the humble pie. You gotta stop what you're doing and address it, apologize, move forward. That's not is it manly to apologize, Jimmy? Is it manly?
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I'd say it's a requisite to have a successful marriage.
Yes. I am so manly because I apologize all the time.
All the time.
Usually with tears in my eyes and on the ground, weak, in the corner like this, shaking. That's the best way to
I,
apologize,
no one
guys.
wants, no one wants to see that.
Yeah, no one should see that. But your kids need to.
Right. Yeah.
um, you know, I think it's time for another dad
Oh,
joke.
no.
I have
Okay.
a I have a
Okay.
book. Okay.
I'm going to brace myself.
Um, here we go. Why are hairdressers always on time? They know all the shortcuts.
Oh, gosh.
There you go. That's two more dad jokes than previous podcasts. Okay.
Do you guys ever go, when you're going through the grocery store, has those little TV screens out by the door when you're leaving that
Yeah.
throws up dad jokes,
Oh no,
grocery
I was thinking security
themed?
cameras.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Pay attention to those too. Yeah. No, have you seen those at the store? They throw up like grocery themed, really bad dad
No,
jokes.
that's awesome though.
And
I need to
so
write some of
when
those down. What store?
at Schnucks,
Oh, okay. Where? I'm
Yeah,
gonna
so when
by
you're
like
leaving, there's like
the
these little
cash
TV
machine
screens.
or what? Where's that by?
No, just right by the exit door,
I've never seen
and
this.
it throws up really bad jokes. And so my girls, like when they go with me and we're leaving, we end up like stopping traffic of it. People are trying to leave. People want to go. They have their food. They want to load their car and go make their meal. Like they have a place to be and a thing to do. But we have to stop and we have to stand there
Not
and
Jimmy's
wait for the
family.
screen. We have to wait for the screen to cycle through because it'll throw the joke up, but it's like you have to wait 60 seconds before it'll give you the answer. And so we're all standing there staring at the screen, waiting for the answer to come up. So, the most recent, and they're always food. I mean, it's the grocery store, so it's always
Yeah.
food related in some sort. But what do you call two bananas? A pair of slippers.
Is it a homeschool thing that you guys are just sitting there reading jokes at the exit? Is that a homeschool
At the
thing?
exit of the grocery
Yeah.
store, yeah. I mean, we this is like highlight of our week right here.
Are your kids and you that unsocialized that you have to sit there and block traffic on the way out?
What's great is occasionally I'll be in there on my own. You know, just you have to run and grab a loaf of bread or something. And I love whenever I'm in the self checkout and I look over and there's another like parent and their child, and the parents like, "Come on, let's go," and the kids are going, "No, wait, I have to read it." Like, it makes my heart happy to see that that's other households that have to go through that too.
That's good. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look for that now. I've never seen that.
yeah,
It's up in the air, like by the exit,
just right by, just right here next to the door,
like eye level for
like
you.
every Schnucks.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta look down. Then you're saying,
If you're looking down, you're doing it wrong.
well, I mean, okay. Speaking of doing
I'd
things
say
wrong,
I have to look up. I have to look up, but it's probably about head level for you. So
okay,
yeah,
okay, yeah, you're
yeah,
like,
yes, exactly.
all right. Well, speaking of doing things wrong, segue. What about I have a list I've curated. I've taken um many seconds to curate this list, Jimmy, and I want to go down this with
Multiples.
you. Multiples of seconds. And it's the top mistakes most dads make. And I started off with like the number one mistake dads make. And then I was like, there's not just one. We have a list. So I started making a list. I was like top 5 and I kept on going. And I think I'm at 10. Let's see. Yeah, I made it to 10 and stopped because I started to have to think a little harder and it wasn't happening. So, top mistakes dads make. Okay? And this is a comprehensive, very in-depth, professional deep dive into the most common pitfalls of fatherhood. Brought to you
And
by
there's nothing outside of this list.
uh
This is it. This
if
is
there
the
is,
definitive
it's a
list.
mistake that this dad has made.
Oh no! Oh no! Mistakes were made.
But that's a good plug-in if you have mistakes that you've made and you feel like they need to be aired online, or that you just feel like you need someone else to understand the mistake that you've made, or maybe you don't think you made a mistake but someone else did. You should go to um, our website. You can go to dadschooledpodcast.com and you can fill out a contact form. You can reach us on X. You can reach us on YouTube. Um, Facebook's a thing now. I'm not sure how that's going to work because it's tied to my personal account. So we'll have to see
Yeah.
and play that
Uh-huh.
by ear. So I could get a lot of fun
Okay.
uh, things from this. But please reach out. Send us in your dad mistakes or questions, and stay socialized with us. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you go to Facebook or we're on Twitch now, also like and subscribe. Definitely appreciate the following and support. But here we go. A deep dive into the most common pitfalls of fatherhood, top mistakes most dads make. Okay, Jimmy, for you. Not for you because I think you do this. I'm just saying for first one for you to commentary on with me. Not being
Hmm.
present enough. That's not giving
Gosh. Yeah.
presents. That's being present,
Oh,
being there.
the other present.
The other
Uh-huh.
present, the one that no one likes, being present.
Yeah. I mean that's I've had those struggles of work throws, a crazy curveball at you, and you have to step out of your regular routine and go deal with a hairy situation with work, something, or just something in your community. I don't know. You have to step away from your family, and you got to go do something, and you're busy, so you're away. When that happens a one-off, like, you deal with it and you come back and you get back into your regular routine and you're plugged in with your home. It's easy though, and I think a lot of husbands in general, fathers, uh, it ends up that becomes the routine of finding busyness, finding excuses at work. Hobbies can factor into this as well. Am I saying you shouldn't have hobbies? No. Like, hobbies are important for your own sanity, but if the hobby is where you spend all of your spare time daydreaming about how you're going to get away, and that's what you do, you're always gone. You're having to tackle things at work where you're constantly just out only hunting, fishing, going to the NASCAR track alone, and you're not. Here's where it's a pitfall for me is when it's not something that you realize this is an opportunity to pour into my children, an opportunity to deliver a new skill or share what I'm passionate about with them and help develop their passions. And when it's only 100% only about yourself, then you're not being present. It's even hard in your day-to-day life, even when you're in the home. Like, go lay on the couch and do the doom scroll alone, and your kids are going, Dad, you want to play a game? Dad, you want to read a book? Dad, you want to come hang out with us? Like, that's the one I most easily fall into. Like, you know what, my brain is already mush. I just need a minute, and that minute turns into an hour. That hour turns into multiple hours. Like, that's not being present. You're in the same room, you're in the same building at least. But I would even say, that's a challenge of being present with your children.
Now, I'm not naive enough to think that this is a new issue, right? But do you think this is generational? This is getting worse as technology grows, as this generation being brought into fatherhood has more distractions like that they can fall back on? Or do you think, like, I look back on my own childhood. I My dad was busy working multiple jobs. He was there. He was busy. He was always busy, but he made an effort to include my sister and myself in everything he did. He never shut us out except for when they were doing taxes. Remember when they were doing taxes at home? You don't mess with mom and dad.
Oh,
You
that's
find a different
oh
room.
yeah. Dining room table is like
Yeah,
taken over for. I remember those years.
hours.
Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it was like a week or so. Like, we all had to eat in the living room for like a week. Well, it was tax season, so like everything's
yeah.
laid out. Don't touch a thing.
Or bills. I remember there was a thing my parents, and that
Yeah.
was a good memory for me. My parents came together and they sat down and did bills together. And it was
Mhm.
we didn't have an abundance of money pouring out of every orifice in our house, so it was always a stressful time. And my parents did a really good job of always keeping my sister and I in the know of what's going on. You know,
Mm.
to our age, respect what we should know at least, not like over details, but so I remember them being busy with jobs. They had multiple businesses. They owned a business at home, and they actually did puppet shows for kids. They went around different places and they had a whole business and stage, and it was very elaborate. Lots of puppets, but they were always present for my sister and I. So that was a good thing for me to see. Is always including us in everything, taking the time, even though they're dead tired, making the time to do things with us and scheduling that time. But back to my question, I kind of asked and then blew over. Do you think it's generational? Like, I remember my parents doing that. I'm sure there is dirtbag parents out there who did that to their kids still, without the phone to scroll through because we didn't have this back then. But do you think it's harder now because of the generation?
I think the variety of distractions is definitely different, and obviously more technologically advanced. The type of distractions we can have, but I think a parent who is not plugged in and is open to distraction, I think that's always been around. And the distraction is different. Maybe it's sit in the favorite chair with the newspaper, and you don't distract dad. You don't interrupt when dad's got his paper. Maybe that was the old,
Yeah, I've heard of
sitting on
that.
the couch with your phone sort of thing. Yeah, it was.
Bring me my steak and my
Um,
beer.
uh huh. Right. Exactly. Make me a sandwich. Uh, there is, I think that pitfall has always been present. It just looked differently generationally. I'm scared to think of what that pitfall is going to look like in another 50 years, what dads are up against when we look at, man, the distractions, the level of distractions we have because of technology today
Mm.
that my dad didn't have to deal with. I mean, what are our kids going to have to deal with when their dads? Like, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I can like. What is it now? The older generation wants people just to visit them, and probably will be like, "Can't you just text me?
Yeah.
Can I get a phone?
Yeah.
Can I get a?
Well, like one of
I
my
don't want a phone call. I just want a text."
one of my favorite memories from growing up is this was as a teenager. This is where I distracted myself and like reclused away from my family. I just played video games just all the time. Just me and my Sega Genesis. That's as high as I got in the home video game console. The console wars was my Sega Genesis. But my dad would come down 3 or 4 times a week, or 2 or 3 times. I don't know, multiple, like lots of times. He'd come down, and he and I would pull up Sonic the Hedgehog, and we would just play the two-player versus Sonic, and just have nice, just long evenings, just the two of us. And he and we still talk about it now. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't think I hardly ever beat you. Like you won every single time." And he's like, it was just great to just hang out with you and just be doing something that we both could enjoy. So I so appreciated that with my dad, that even as I was growing older and finding ways to distract myself as the child in the home, he sought me out.
Mm.
He could have very easily just sat upstairs and found his own distraction or found his own hobby, or only been in his own world. Um, but he chose to seek me out and come spend time with me, and that stands out with me, even to this day, that I try to find ways that I can do that with my own kids.
So that's interesting. That it's even something simple. 'Cause I'm sure your dad was not crazy about video games, right? Like it wasn't his top five things he wanted to do. He was
Right.
probably like, and I'm sure you asked all the time, "Will you play with me, Dad? Will you play with me, Dad? Will you play with me, Dad?" And
Right.
that one time or a few times that he does play with you, it stood out, didn't it? It made a difference.
Oh yeah.
So that's an important thing to keep in mind, other dads out there, um, that even those things that you might not enjoy doing. And did your dad like sulk the entire time and scuff and say, "Oh, this is terrible" when he was doing it, or was he engaged with you? Did he appear to be having fun?
I mean, sulking if because he was hardly ever
Losing?
winning, but other than that,
Yeah, okay, okay. But he wasn't like lamenting that he was down there wasting time with you, right?
exactly.
Okay.
No, yeah, he made it known like I was important and it was valuable of his time to be with me. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we can say, dad school tip for today is be present, even if it's not what you want to be doing, but it's important to your kids, and it might make a lasting impression. Go above and beyond.
And be mindful. I think you were kind of hitting on it. Be mindful of the way you're presenting yourself when you plug in with your kid. Like,
Yes.
don't be dragging your feet in the sulky. I'm only doing this because your mom said I have to. Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I value you and you're important, and I value your future, and we're gonna spend some time together because I love spending time with you because I love you. Like,
Yeah.
voice
And
those words.
and a busy parent, even if you're not busy, even making a big deal about something like this in terms of scheduling it. If you are busy and have to put things on your calendar to block time out, do that, because that too, like the all important calendar that dad has to follow, or mom, but you need to schedule time, and your kid sees that, and it's like, wow, I made the calendar. Something like that
Yeah.
even could make a big difference and go a long way in the importance of what you're doing with your kid. Just scheduling that time, blocking it out, and saying, this is my time to be present with my kid. And I'm definitely guilty of. I have this website to work on. I have this thing to do. I have this meeting I'm in. I'm doing all this stuff, and then my kids are always asking me to play games. We're a big gaming family, right? My kids are always asking to play games with me, always asking to do things. I'm very guilty of when I finally get a moment for myself to decompress, to flipping on a quick YouTube video or flipping on, a quick game. I don't play as many games as I want to still, but uh, my decompression time is definitely to sit there and do something mindless for a second, and I do feel guilty sometimes because I tell my kids I can't do that with you right now, and then they walk in and see me doing that, and it's like crap. Now I feel like a
Yeah.
dirtbag.
Yeah.
So I something I'm trying to improve on is decompressing at the same time of showing my kids time. That's what I'm gonna try to do going forward, and it's not easy because I don't get much time, you know, during the normal waking hours of the day to do that with my kids. But I need to make an effort
Yeah.
to do that more.
Well, and it gets interesting just to tie it into the reason why we exist here on this podcast as homeschool dads, and in particular, both you and I mostly work out of the home,
Mm-hmm.
so we're around our family a lot, and so there's time that I have to be devoted to work, and then whenever I'm outside of my work time, I need a little bit of time to get my own head straight, and do a little bit for myself. But then I also want to pour in time for my family, for my kids. And when we're already almost always exclusively in the home, sometimes that balance gets a little tricky. And your kids are like, "Oh, Dad's around. I want his attention. I want to spend time with him." And so, like, I love what you're saying about making sure it's on the calendar, even if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
That like it's blocked out. A, it shows them you're important, but then B, like it shows you, hey, I need to make sure that I'm keeping tabs on where I am with my time and carve that out. And it's easy to rabbit hole into other projects in the house. And yeah, make sure that you're still making that time available.
Yeah, I know my oldest son is going to look at this, watch this podcast, and then instantly schedule time on my calendar with me. I'm seeing that with the next hour. He's just gonna be like, "Dad, let's schedule your calendar." It's like, yes, I should do that.
The easiest solution to that for me is don't have a calendar.
Oh
It's
no,
everything is by the seat of your pants. It's
no,
great.
my pants would be on
No.
fire and fall off. I can't. It won't work. Okay. Speaking of pants on fire, segue. Not that segue. Um, the next most common pitfalls of fatherhood, top mistakes dads make, being too harsh or too lenient on your children.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's an interesting one because your kids need correction. Uh, I mean,
Some
you
need
see
more
all
than
the
others.
some more than others. I mean, you're out again at the grocery store or wherever, and you're watching another family. Like, just do something about your kid. Like, come on, like,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to them. They need your attention, or they need some correction. But I mean, how often does it even happen in your own home where you're distracted and then you're too lenient? Uh, that one that one I think takes a lot of introspection of digging into your own heart, what's going on in yourself. The way that you're going to treat others is a reflection of just where your heart is, and if your heart is full of a lot of anger, a lot of malice, then that's what's going to pour out of you. That's the way that you're going to interact with other people, including your kids and your spouse. And so taking that time to work through whatever's going on in your own life, and then taking it to the Lord and say, God, I need you to refine me. I need you to
Definitely.
point out things in my life that need that attention, and need the rough edges scraped off. And getting rough edges scraped off can be painful. It can hurt. But if you come out a sharper tool on the other side, then great. Um, but yeah,
So,
the dads that are too harsh are the ones that you hear, abusive.
mm,
You hear kids have scarred memories, whether it's a physical or a mental, emotional scar. But you hear those stories talking to friends that their dad was just real crazy. But then you meet the other kids that you could tell, like, oh, you didn't have any boundaries. You got away with everything. You still try to, and yeah, that's not working out so well for you now. So you just got to look at how you approach things in your own home, and if you're finding yourself on one of those extremes, try to get in the middle.
Yeah. I think there's a couple different angles on this one because, like you said, you have the being too harsh or you have being too lenient. Being too harsh can definitely be physical. If your dad is just a rough dad and beating the snot out of you, that's one aspect. You probably shouldn't be doing that. Too harsh. But there's also the verbal and mental. Like your dad could um, not build you up as a child, and your dad could always criticize everything you're doing, nag at you. Nothing you do is good enough. You can't do the chore correctly. You can't do the dishes correctly. This is something that I myself need to be careful of because I'm a very sarcastic person. I don't know if you knew this or not. I'm a very sarcastic person. I like to joke around. I also have that stupidity in my head of wanting things done a certain way that I'm thinking about it and not really thinking that other people do things differently or might not be as perfect as I am all the time. So I do say things in a harsher manner than I should. And it's something, and I don't consider myself abusive. My wife hasn't let me know that I'm considered abusive. So I'm pretty sure I'm not on the horrible spectrum of that. But I got
That's
to be
good.
careful because I do tend to nag at my kids sometimes about things and overcorrect, I think. So that is something that even an individual as perfect looking as I am as a father figure has
Right.
to work on. So, but then the too lenient part you said, kids in the supermarket, just getting away with anything. I don't think the parents just checked out and given up at that point.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know, there's like letting your kid explore boundaries, and then there's not being respectful of people around you and the situations you're in, like destroying property, being loud, obnoxious. That's I guess that's being loud, obnoxious is subjective because any noise my kid makes out in public that isn't a yes sir, no sir in my general direction is considered obnoxious on some levels. I don't want other people outside being like, their kids are talking. They must be
Right.
homeschoolers. You know,
Oh no.
yeah. So and then that bites me too because later on, like I'm like, speak up, say your name. Someone's like, "How are you? What's your name?" And your kids are like,
Stranger danger.
"Yeah," hiding behind you.
Yeah.
So there's a balance, but that's and I think that it's a balance, but definitely, and here's the other half of it. Being lined up with your partner, being in alignment with your spouse on the
Mm-hmm.
harshness, either too much or not enough. You have to be in the same page because if one of you guys is like off the cuff yelling at your kids, and the other one is always defending your kids, you might get into some marital issues of why are you always taking your kid's side, why are you never have my back, those can that kind of thing can lead to strife in your marriage. And if you're strong and unified in how you deal with your kids, which always happens with parenting,
Mm-hmm.
then you can have a happier marriage if you're strong and unified with how you deal with your kids on a daily basis.
Maybe there's some guys out there that all of this just snaps into place naturally and they're perfect at it. I find, in my experience, this takes work. In order for it to, in order to be successful at this, you have to actually put some effort into it. In order to be successful as a husband and as a dad, uh, it's not something that immediately and naturally just works out perfectly all the time. It takes self awareness. It takes a level of paying attention to where my heart is and being willing to sacrifice from time to time. That it's not only about me and getting my way and doing all of the crazy things that I want to do. Like my whole family is involved now, and
Mm.
and sometimes it's me sacrificing for them, and there will be days where it's them sacrificing for me, and that's the sort of dynamic that I inspire to have my home built around.
Here's a wake up call for some dads out there, possibly. Jimmy, and I really hope you give the right answer, or this whole podcast is for nothing. On a daily basis, what is your goal in your household? Is it to get all the riches and all the things for yourself and glorify yourself, or is what is your goal to glorify your your kids, your wife, and God? Which one's the right answer? Oh my gosh. And right as I asked that answer, Jimmy just left the podcast. That was a strong and powerful question to ask because he just completely he logged off. He was just not capable of answering such a powerful question. Um, I'll answer for him. The answer should have been it's to glorify God, glorify your family, glorify your kids. It is definitely to further your family and their closeness together and their closeness to God. It is definitely not to get all the riches for yourself. It's definitely not to get all the glory for yourself. Um, Definitely not to be selfish. So, your dads out there, your goal in life should not be for yourself. Oh, did he just message me and tell me? Oh, we're having some technical difficulties. I need to do. Let's see. I gotta send Jimmy a new link here. Stay with us here, guys. Sorry, he just completely jumped off. Okay, sent a new link, and hopefully that means he can join me now. Um, yeah, it's always something. Things never work exactly how you want. Um, so the next item on the list, not expressing love and affection. Okay, common common mistake most dads make: not expressing love and affection. Now I think, oh, I got Jimmy back. Here we go. Show
I'm
his screen.
back. I don't.
He's
That's
back.
2 weeks in a row now. I am so sorry. I don't know why that keeps happening. You were
That
in
was
the
a
middle of asking important
powerful,
questions.
powerful questions, and you're just like disconnect.
Disconnect. I have no idea what may or may not be causing that.
So
I'm
this is an
sorry.
example of how to be present enough.
Present.
You be present, because if you're not present,
I'm just sitting here mashing buttons like a monkey, just hoping something works out. I don't know what I'm doing over here.
we need to come up with a contingency plan when that happens. Because I'm just like, we have
I can't
technical
wait for the.
difficulties.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually moved on
Yeah.
because that question was just too powerful to get too deeper into. Okay.
It
Uh,
was. I
Not
guess.
expressing love and affection. Another mistake most dads make. I was just waiting for you
Yeah.
to disconnect again there. Sorry. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean,
is
there's.
it manly to express love to your wife, to your kids? Is it manly?
Yeah. Absolutely. They need to know that they're secure in their father's love. It's one of those annoying tropes out there that, oh, my boy's going to grow up to be a sissy, or
Mm,
I don't know, if I give him a hug, uh, at, out in public or even at home, like he's got to toughen up. Uh, and, I'm sure that there's a good handful of guys that are, kids that still came out okay in the end because of other circumstances God put in their life. But I'd rather be that positive influence in their life, and they not have to hope that something else gets them on a good path. Because if they're not going to get love and affection from you,
mm-hmm.
it's a need in their heart, a need in their life. They're going to look for it somewhere else,
Yep.
and then you're going to have other issues as a dad that you're going to have to deal with later in life.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather give them that strong foundation now of this is what healthy love and connection looks like. Model it with my wife so that they can see, oh, this is the kind of relationship I want to be in when I grow up. Uh, and give them that experience now. It's one of the things that we've even just recently started talking about with our oldest daughter. Like, I mean, she's not going to be dating for a long time, but trying to put that seed in her mind of pay attention to how guys treat their moms.
Mm.
So
Yes.
young men, the relationship that they have with their mom, it's probably going to be fairly indicative of the way that they're going to treat their spouse. If they're always rude and condescending and just flat out disrespectful to their mom, that's probably going to be a bit of a learned behavior that they're going to bring with them into their future relationships. So, building that strong connection now as a parent, as a father and a mother out there, um, set your children up for success now.
Definitely. Definitely. And I love what you said about if you're not showing your kids love and affection, it's something that as humans we crave and we want companionship. We are not meant to be alone. We are meant to have a companion. Um, we're gonna seek it someplace else. You know, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
giving people excuses on why they've done stupid things in the past, but the root of a lot of bad things is loneliness, feeling neglected, feeling alone and forgotten about. So think about your kids, and it goes back to what I was saying before when Jimmy disconnected on me. Uh, it's it's not it's not a bad thing to make your kids and your family the most important thing in your life outside of God. Obviously, you gotta put the credit
Mm-hmm.
where it's due, but it's if you're self centered and you're only going after riches on this earth for yourself, that's gonna go down to your kids, and they're gonna see that, and they're going to adopt that mentality as well. They're gonna put materialistic things first in life outside of family or God, and it's not gonna go good for them later on. They're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, yeah,
All
and
right.
it's tragic when you see those stories come about.
Yeah, I can think of a couple of examples in around me that I've seen that, and it's not been good. It's always
Yeah,
bad. So, along with bad things, top mistakes most dads make: comparing your kids to others. Now, I'm not talking about comparing your kids to Joseph Stalin or comparing your kids to like I don't know, a video game character. I'm saying like comparing your kids to other kids, comparing your kids to your own self at their age. Even that, is as simple as it sounds, can be a bad move as a father to make, because it puts the expectation to your kid that they're not living up to your expectations. I guess I said that weirdly, didn't I? It puts it out there that obviously that you're not as good as this other comparison, right?
yeah. It's, you hear the kids say, I was never good enough for you.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as a parent just making a one-time simple comment of, "Why can't you be more like the Johnsons kids?" or something like that. Like that's a cutting remark that that could be a scar that a kid carries with them for a long time. Of, I'm just not good enough. I'm not as good as other. But it could ramp up all the way to the family, that every waking moment of every single day is we're traveling around and doing all of the sport leagues, and my
Mm-hmm.
entire existence as a family is chasing the sport league trophies. We're traveling all over the country because you have to win. You got to be a winner. And if that's the only message they ever get, and whenever they lose, then it's the most disrespectful thing that they could have done to you as a parent, that their team didn't win. Um, and again, I'm not saying sport leagues are bad, but there are those examples out there of the family that this is their entire existence, and that
Mm-hmm.
the child ends up absolutely harmed, not because they played a physical game and had an injury, but they're harmed emotionally, and their emotional health is stunted because that's all that they feel is their value, is what they're putting out on the field, and that sort of thing. Like, there's a lot of different type of examples of how this one can play out.
Yeah, and then I wanna be careful in saying if your kid plays sports, you're not doing this wrong. Okay, I'm not saying that just because your kid's in
Yeah.
sports, you're a terrible dad. I'm not saying that because your kid is good in sports and you are successfully pursuing that and helping them grow in that you're wrong. I think what Jimmy's getting at is when you obsess about you have to be better. Nothing you do is good enough. When you obsess about
Mhm.
making your kid go to practices even when they're telling you they don't want to go, that's when it becomes bad, right? Yeah. No.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry,
Good. I
it
was like,
froze again for a second. I didn't hear what she said.
oh, well,
Sorry.
just being the over obnoxious parent that pushes their kid. Like I was just reiterating what you were saying. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, your video quality is really trashing out right now.
I'm
Hmm.
sorry.
That's it's fun. It's like a the year 2000 called, and they want their instant messenger back.
Yeah,
um, moving on. Letting work or stress take over. Top mistakes most dads make. We kind of touched on this one before, but yeah, letting
yeah.
work or stress take over in your life.
Those come up. I mean, those days happen. Work and stress happens, um,
It's how you deal
and
with
we're
it, I
gonna
think.
handle it better some days than others. But
Yeah, it's how you deal with it that makes the difference here, right? It's not
yeah,
so much that you had a stressful day or you had a bad day. It's that you repeatedly make that what your day is. You bring it home from the office. If you know what, if you have that bad of a job, maybe you should think about changing your job. As simple as that sounds, it is hard to find new careers. But if it's coming home and affecting your family life, yes, your income. This is another stereotype that the dad has the big income, blah 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 blah. Because that's not always the case. But if your income is affecting your family life, if your job is making family life miserable, you need to be a good dad. You need to be a good father and realize that and correct that. Okay, because your job will be gone someday. It's inevitable. Things are going to happen. Your job's going to be gone. You're going to either finish up your years at the company. That those days are kind of long and gone. You stay at a company for 30 years, but you finish up your job at a company, or they get rid of you, and you still have a family to come home to. Whatever condition you left them in, emotionally scarred and damaged from all the time that you were at work, you still have a family to come home to. Unless you're that terrible
yeah,
of a dad, then you won't. And that's the threat you have. You need to make sure
right.
that the things that are important in your life are put first. You can be a
Hmm.
very good employee and still have a very strong family life at home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about balance
Balance. That's right.
and
Um,
mindfulness. I mean, you have to be mindful of that to have good balance.
and part of having balance and part of being mindful is listening. So, on the next item on our list, top mistakes most dads make, not listening enough. But what was that you said? Nothing? Oh, I was listening. Sorry.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That just goes hand in hand with all levels of other distraction, whether it's work or hobbies or reading the news or uh, just it could even just be a conversation with your spouse. You guys are trying to connect and catch up because you haven't seen each other. You've been busy with other things, and you guys are trying to connect. And your kids also want your attention. There's numerous things that can come up in life that end up being a detraction from being a good listener for your kids.
Definitely. Definitely. Listening is a powerful skill that has to be taught to people sometimes. Sometimes people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. And they're listening
Mm,
on how to solve the problem. That's something I struggle with this. I hear something from somebody and all I hear is I have a problem. I need you to help me. And that's where my mind goes. I like to solve problems and help people. So, um when someone's telling me something, I don't ever think that maybe they just need to tell me something. Maybe they just need to talk about something.
Mhm.
And I could just be like, oh, huh, that is a bummer. I'm sorry. That must have made you feel really bad. Empathy is something that I have a hard time with. I remember distinctly in when I worked in college, I worked for Domino's Pizza, and one of their training videos was empathy. And I remember watching this video and seeing the two scenarios of like the pizza person's like, "Yeah, your pizza's wrong. Sorry, we'll get that fixed next time for you. Here's your credit for your account." That was number one. Number two, oh, I'm really sorry that I understand how having the wrong pizza can make you feel bad, and it's not what you ordered and it makes you upset. I can understand how that's upsetting. I don't like when that happens to me either. I'm going to go ahead and credit your account and give you a free pizza next time. Is there anything else I can do for you right now? And it was like night and day. And I remember looking at that and that's stupid. Who talks that way? You know? But in reality, that's like how you're supposed to act to people, apparently. And that's just not how my brain is wired. So
Yeah.
listening to respond to like get the person out of my face is usually how I'm dealing with conversations. So it's something I gotta work on myself of actually
Yeah.
listening to conversations, reading it a little better, and providing the right response that they're looking for. Looking at a conversation of why is this person talking to me? What do they hope to get out of this conversation? And then me as an adult having that conversation back with them they desire instead of just being like, cool, go away, you know? So listening
Hmm.
is a good skill to have, and you can work on these things. Um, you can practice this with yourself in the shower. You know, just talk to yourself and listen to yourself.
Or just talk to the other voices that you
Yeah,
hear in your head.
there's a lot to choose from. Just talk to one of them.
One of them. No, what you said earlier. It's the choosing to listen and not just hear. That's the key.
Yeah, and I accidentally hit the next topic, trying to fix every problem instead of supporting. Okay, same thing. Um, you gotta understand the context of the person talking to you and what they're saying and why they're talking to you, because maybe they don't want you to fix their problem and maybe they just want to complain, and some people just have to complain, and fixing that is not your job either. Some people
Hmm.
just have to complain about something and you gotta be like, oh yeah, uh-huh, oh yeah, high five, and you walk away, right? you don't gotta
Uh-huh.
you don't gotta try to fix that broken relationship that they never learn from every single time. She got back with him again. Big surprise. But she still needs to complain about
Uh-huh.
it. So just listen to it and move on. It's
Right.
but and your kids, you know. Sorry, this is more about kids than annoying people you have to deal with in life. But I kind of went off on that whole aspect of like this pet peeve of mine of just complaining. But um, yeah, your kids. How does this apply to your kids? Yeah, so your kids have problems and they come to you and they're having conversations and listening to their problems and trying to figure out a way to have them solve their problems without becoming reliant on you fixing their problems all the time is one skill you could focus on. Um, but yeah, you should definitely be there for your kids instead of trying to um, just listen and be like, well, it sucks to be you and move on. Right.
Hmm. Well, it's one of the issues that happens a lot just in couples where a wife comes to you wanting to just talk through a situation and you're like, okay, great, let me just go fix it. Like that's my default
Yeah.
setting is I just want to go fix whatever's happening. And that's not what she needs all the time. Sometimes she needs help getting something fixed. And I'm not talking about like a broken household item, just like whatever situation is coming up. Like that's where my brain goes like, okay, great, let's go deal with it. Let's fix it and we'll move on. Check it off. We're done.
Yeah.
But that's not what she's needing in the moment. And that same thing can happen with your kids where it's not just I, as the man in the house and as the dad, it's my job to just, all right, we're just going to put these pieces in place. It's fixed. It's done and bulldoze through. Like your kids need a different level of support at different times. So being mindful to pause and think about, okay, so what are they dealing with right now? And are they needing me to just fix the broken item or the broken relationship and then check it off? Or are they just needing a shoulder to cry on for a moment? Like, and that takes uh, that takes a skill and an ability of having personal introspection, of realizing what's going on inside yourself and also with them, and then hope that you make the right choice.
Yeah, and that you nailed it. I struggle with that as well. I know my wife likes to. We don't get alone time because we have 4 kids in the house, so it's like we don't get a lot of time to sit there and talk uninterrupted for a while. So when we do see each other in passing,
Right? Yeah.
she has a list on her mind that she wants to tell me about things, or she decompresses and she tells me things to get it off her mind, or just to like affirm that she has a schedule, she's doing different things. And I take it different ways
Yeah.
depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes I take it as a list of problems I need to fix. So I start going down the list and trying to fix it, and that's not the right thing to do either. Or,
No.
I start like, I need to listen to that instead of blowing it off as well, because it's important to my wife and she needs to tell me things. So I need to listen to those things. And same with my kids. Sometimes they need to tell me things that are completely random and have nothing to do with what I'm doing at the moment. But just a simple act of listening and acknowledging, it doesn't take any, like, it might feel like it distracts me and stops me from what I'm doing, and I'm so flustered because I gotta look at somebody else other than what I was doing at work or something. But it also goes back to being present. you know if I'm distracted and
Mhm.
I show that whatever I'm doing is more important than my child who wants to tell me about this awesome new Lego that they just got, or this awesome random thing that has nothing to do with anything important. It's important that I am present for that and I listen to that. All
Mhm.
right. So,
Yeah.
going from listening to avoiding. Okay. Top mistakes most dads make: avoiding difficult conversations. Hmm. Do you ever do this, Jimmy? Do you ever just like walk out of the room instead of talking about something? Are you that awkward dad that does
I'm
that?
avoiding right now.
Is that
That's
when you disconnect
that's what.
the stream and just nope?
Yeah. Gosh, that's. I mean, ever. I think everyone has that inner struggle, that tendency of if something's uncomfortable to lean away from it, and it takes that um, intentional decision. No, I'm going to lean into it, and
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna deal with it. We're gonna talk through it, and yeah, it might be more uncomfortable for you than it is for me, or it might be vice versa. Um,
Guarantee you, it'll
but
be more uncomfortable for you.
good, yeah, right. Um, but I can see how easy that is to be a pitfall to fall into, and for that to become a regular default setting almost for a lot of dads. Like, no, don't want to talk about that. Um, like,
Yeah,
oh, that's a girl thing. That's my daughter. No, no, that's for your mom. Go talk to her. That's not for me. Like, no, like you need to have like there's things that she's going to be a better expert on, but
mm-hmm.
you can still be present and you can still be involved. Um, you might get things wrong, and that's okay.
That's right. You have
Seek
2 girls,
forgiveness later.
so you have that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 2 girls. We have 2 girls. Um, you definitely have that whole line that you can draw in the sand as a dad and be like, this is not something dad talks to you about. Uh, is it always appropriate to cross that line with 2 feet in the air, jumping across it and saying, let's talk about everything? Probably not.
Right.
And there's like,
Yeah.
discretion and, you got to use common sense, but definitely shying away from topics. I think in general, the least manly thing I've ever seen a guy do is be like, "Nope, that's your mom's. I don't deal with that stuff." What kind of a jarhead
Hmm.
are you? Like, what mental defect do you have that you think that telling your kid, "I'm not going to talk to you about this because your mom deals with that"? What makes you feel like that's the right answer? That's just dumb.
Well, and that turns into just like a crush that you can pull out at any time. Like,
Yeah,
I just don't want to deal with it. And it could be on any topic. They're like,
yeah,
nope, that's your mom's department,
yeah.
you know,
No,
and that's just a skeezy way to live your life as a dad.
you wanna learn about the birds and the bees? Pull up a chair. Let's scar you for life. Come here. Not in that way though. You don't get inappropriate. I'm just saying
Yeah.
like the
Um,
conversation. You shouldn't shy away from things. It should
yeah.
be a conversation always. And if you don't know the answer, or if you're unsure of the answer because you question your own masculinity, then definitely you can tell them, I'm going to come back and talk to you about this after I do a little research. That's fine. But you should never be like, I don't. This is your mom's department. No, no. Or you
Yeah.
could, say, I want to talk to your mom first before we talk about this, or let's talk about this with your mom. But you never just be absent and say, I check out. Bye. Going to the grocery store, see you in 20
Uh-huh.
years. You don't do that. All right. So, um, I think I did skip one. I don't know if you caught that, Jimmy, but it was
I did.
not leading by example. But we kind of beat that one with a horse earlier today. So we're gonna skip
Yeah.
that one a little bit and go to the last one on my list. We are actually getting out of time here. Top mistakes most dads make: not letting your kids fail. Do you like to see your kids fail,
I,
Jimmy?
no, no one likes to see their kids fail, but this is one of those topics like I could jump on a soapbox and go on way too long,
Uh oh.
uh, and ruffle some feathers. But there's some things out there where we've gone into. I feel like the last 20-ish some odd years, we've gone into this culture of everyone gets a trophy
Mm,
mentality, and what I feel happens is we're removing opportunities for kids to encounter character building opportunities
mm,
because it's through our failures that if it's handled in an appropriate way, you can take an assessment of what happened, what went wrong, what was my shortcoming. If it's a team thing, if it was a game, playing in a sport, what did our team do wrong? Where can we improve? Um, those are opportunities that I feel like are getting stripped away from kids, where it's everyone just if you show up just by being present, you are just as phenomenal and amazing as the person who put in hours and hours of effort, blood, sweat, and tears, broke a bone along the way. They're the most phenomenal person at whether it's a sport or showing up for the science fair. It's you could tell the kid that stayed up multiple nights working really really hard on their thing, and then you could tell the kid who just got a glue stick and a couple magazine cutouts and slap that up the night before in about 10 minutes, but then everyone comes away with the exact same round of applause. And I think there's opportunities that we can build into our child's life, and as a society I think it's something that we can be working towards is not emphasizing people's failures and how terrible they are, but taking the opportunity to dissect where you are on your journey. Are there things that you can dig into? It takes work, it takes effort, it takes introspection, things that can be uncomfortable, um, but what you can be on the other end. And it's through your experiences with failure. That's what points out where you truly are. Um, and we can build in mechanisms in our life that we have some safety nets in place that you don't want a catastrophic failure. You don't want your life to completely fall apart, and that's what we are as parents. We're that safety net that we can help them pick up the pieces, or just give them the parameters of okay, I'm going to allow you to have some failure, but I'm going to keep you like the bumpers at the bowling lane.
yeah,
We're going to keep you in this lane, and you might bounce around a little bit, but we're going to make sure you get to that goal at the end of the lane. And that's kind of our role as parents, but we need to let them have those opportunities to build character.
definitely. Yeah, I didn't know this was such a triggered topic for you, Jimmy. I love this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had
So
long thoughts on this
long
specific
thoughts.
topic.
That's better than
For
short thoughts.
uh-huh,
I like
yeah,
that. Uh,
yeah,
so what you're saying is, as long as it is not detrimental to our kids, it's okay to let them fail and see the failure and learn from it. Now, there are key points to this that we got to talk about. letting your kid fail does not mean um, being absent. Like,
Mm.
you do it. You're not doing it my way. You're not doing it the way I think you should do it. I see this coming. I'm going to tell you nonstop. This is not going to work. That's the wrong approach.
Hmm.
Watching your kids fail, whether you can see it coming or not. Let's just go down the situation of you see it coming, and you see your kid's going to do something wrong. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to hurt them physically. Um, the failure hopefully is not going to be too public that they'll be scarred for life that way too. But I think it's like you said, it's healthy to let them fail. But you shouldn't be condescending and naggy at them about that. Like you shouldn't remind them every 5 seconds about the failure. Like there's
You don't want to
playful
be
jabbing.
you don't want to be like Nelson from The Simpsons, where you point and laugh. Going, ah! Yeah, like that. Yeah, you know, it's not bringing shame into the situation, but it's coming alongside them and like, all right, let's work on this together. Like, we got work to do. I'm here with you. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important. There's different degrees of failure, obviously, but it definitely should make it where, let's see, it shouldn't be boastful. Like I'm trying to see where I'm trying to go with this. If you watch your kid fail, and if regardless if you saw it or not, at the very end you shouldn't be now. You see the dumb thing you did. You see, you see how you shouldn't do that ever again. There's learning and teaching, and then there's like being a
Uh-huh.
jerk. You shouldn't be a
Yeah,
jerk. That's not going to help. Shame is very powerful. Calling someone out in public is very powerful at teaching someone something, but it's not always something you should constantly fall back on to make them regret making a bad decision. Because what's going to happen is they're not going to make that step next time. They're gonna step backwards instead of stepping up to do something.
yeah.
So, and I gotta be careful of this. I know my oldest is probably laughing his butt off right now listening to this because I've been chiding him for the past couple weeks about we just started playing D&D together with a group of people, and he made a poor decision. Actually, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know as a wizard you couldn't wear armor without having that skill, and
What?
you can't wear you can, but unless you have that proficiency, you can't cast spells, right? Well, I didn't know this. I'm new at D&D as well. But I think it's hilarious that he tried to cast a magic missile, and we later retconned it because he couldn't because he had armor on, right? So I've been chiding him about that, wearing armor. I probably should be more careful. I think it's funny. He laughed about it, but maybe I'm taking it too far. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
taking my own words here, my own advice, feeling a little convicted. Um, we'll still definitely bring it up every now and then, but I'm not going to beat it over his head as much as I have been. Maybe that's an example. Uh, then you have the tactile example of you see your kid reaching for a hot pot or a hot pan, right?
yeah.
Now, and I know that it's hot, and and I know that it's going to hurt. But we also know it's going to be a good life lesson if he does burn his hand.
Yeah.
should you tell, like, we probably already told him it's hot. Don't touch that. Is there a healthy, like, if it's non life threatening, not going to scar him for too long? Is there a healthy mentality behind letting him burn his hand on a pot?
This is part of the joys of being a parent is you need to have that quick calculation ability to assess the situation and know when you need to step in. I mean, your young toddler is running into the middle of the street and there's a car coming.
Yeah,
I mean, failure would be very, very bad in this situation. So you might need to grab their arm and yank them back, and in that process, you might pull their arm out of
yeah,
socket,
yeah,
and that could be a bad situation. But the alternative is much worse. So yeah, sometimes failure, it's our job to step in and keep them from experiencing that failure. So I'm not saying as parents we need to be completely hands off and like, nope, let every failure come to them, and then that's where character comes from. But no, we still as parents we see the bigger picture, and that's what I was saying. Like, give those guardrails, and be that safety net for them. That a little failure can go a long way. if handled well.
So on the same pathway, the same train of thought, it's probably important as dads. We're always trying to hold ourselves to a high standard. We don't want to look stupid. We already talked in the past episodes about the stupefaction of the American dad in Hollywood. All these shows are portraying a dad as being goofy and clumsy and making all his mistakes all the time. And
Yeah,
I think that really attaches itself to a lot of people sometimes as being dads. But it's important for us to also embrace our failures. And I'm not telling you to hug your kids, okay? Embrace your failures. You can hug your kids. I'm going to correct myself there. You can hug your kids, but not because they're failures. We should embrace our failures and call them out. Be mindful that if we make a mistake, it's healthy for us to acknowledge that mistake in our family if we do make one in our family, and have our kids see that we're not perfect. We're not always saying we're perfect. We can acknowledge that we're not perfect, and we can point to the higher power. We can point to God. We can point to other things greater than ourselves all the time, right?
yeah,
Like that's, I think, a healthier thing than to portray yourself as all knowing. Because we all have that moment in life when we realize our dads don't know everything,
yeah,
and some people it's more scarring than others. But it's important to remember that that's going to happen eventually with your kids, and better for them to realize that you acknowledge that yourself than you're conceited and always portray yourself as I know everything and I'm perfect. All right. Well, I think we might have made it, Jimmy. This went a little
hey,
longer, but we
I
made
only
it through the
disappeared
list.
once,
Yeah, only one time. Well, maybe I have the little count on the top of the screen. It's like number of times Jimmy has ditched me on this podcast.
and it's only when you bring up the really tough
The
questions.
really tough questions. Why can't you ever do that on a softball question that I can answer myself? I'm like
I
posing
might
you a
start
question.
disappearing. I might start disappearing during your dad joke section, though. I don't know.
The scary part about you disappearing isn't the fact that you disappear, is I don't know how to get you back. Like I'm sitting there clicking buttons also, and I have no indication on my software here of like
Eh,
you're waiting for me. So I have to continuously click into the camera and see if you're there to allow you in. There's no notification at all. So it's
yeah,
kind of like crap. Get in here. Get in here. Is he here yet? He's not here yet. And you're over there sitting there. All right. So that's it for
I
today.
am.
Uh, it was a good episode. I enjoyed this topic, this conversation. As always, if you want to follow us or know more, go to dadschoolpodcast.com and check us out. We have information on there about what we are about and who we are. Um, you can look at our goofy faces on the page. It has me and Jimmy there looking at the camera very differently. And then we also have a contact us form that you can stay in touch. Is that a truck going by your house?
It was. It was really loud. Someone's on their way to work.
That's awesome.
Sorry about that.
No problem. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us.